The grand ballroom shimmered with golden light. Crystal chandeliers swung gently above the laughing crowd, and the sound of champagne glasses chimed like soft bells. It was the charity gala of the year, an evening where the city's elite gathered, pretending to care about art while secretly competing for attention. Among them was Ethan Walker, 32, a successful tech entrepreneur, handsome, charming, but known for being emotionally distant. Money came easily to him, but meaning did not. He'd built empires, yet nothing ever truly touched his heart. That night, he leaned against the marble column, half bored, half amused. His guests gossiped about his wealth and rumored engagement to a model he barely knew. Then, she walked in. A young woman in a simple navy blue dress, violin case in hand, eyes filled with quiet confidence. Her name was Lila Harper, 27, the hired musician for the night. She wasn't rich, famous, or connected, but when she smiled, something about her felt. Little Ethan noticed how out of place she looked among the glittering guests. Yet she stood tall, graceful, unshaken. When the host announced her performance, the room dimmed, and Lila stepped into the spotlight. The first note of her violin cut through the air, pure, haunting, emotional. Every sound carried a story of hope, struggle, loss, and beauty. The crowd, once loud and restless, fell silent. Ethan felt something stir inside him. It wasn't just music. It was soul. After her performance, the audience erupted in applause. Lila bowed, cheeks flushed with gratitude, and quietly slipped to the side of the stage. But Ethan couldn't look away. He walked up to her. That was breathtaking, he said, handing her a glass of water. She smiled, humble and warm. Thank you. I'm glad it meant something to someone. Their eyes met, a connection, unexpected but powerful. They talked for a while, about life, passion, music, and the emptiness of success without meaning. Then, half joking, Ethan said, "You know, if someone could make me feel that way every day, I'd marry them in a heartbeat." Lila laughed softly. "Then you should listen more often." But the next thing she said turned the evening upside down. She looked at him seriously and said, "Play the violin, and I'll marry you." The crowd nearby overheard, gasps, chuckles, whispers. Ethan froze. "Me? Play the violin?" "Yes," she said. "Anyone can buy beauty, but few can create it. If you can play, truly play, I'll know your heart's alive." Ethan, caught between pride and intrigue, agreed. "Deal." For the next few weeks, Ethan couldn't shake her words. Something about that challenge felt pure. He bought a violin and hired a teacher. His friends mocked him. "You're really doing this for a girl?" But it wasn't about her anymore. It was about finding something he'd lost, feeling. Every night he practiced, clumsy at first, then steady, then soulful. The instrument became his mirror. Through every note he faced his fears, his loneliness, his humanity. Months passed. One day he found Lila performing at a small park concert. When she saw him, he smiled nervously and said, "You remember our deal?" He lifted his violin. His hands trembled, but his heart was steady. The melody he played wasn't perfect, but it was honest, raw, emotional, filled with every lesson she'd unknowingly taught him. When he finished, silence hung in the air. Then Lila's eyes welled with tears. She stepped closer and whispered, "You didn't just learn to play. You learned to feel." The crowd clapped softly as she took his hand. "I wasn't serious when I said that," she said with a shaky smile. "But now, I think I might be." A year later, at another gala, the same ballroom, same chandeliers, Ethan stood with a violin in his hands once again. But this time, he wasn't the audience. As he played his heart out, his wife, Lila Walker, stood beside him, radiant, proud, in a white gown. And when he finished, she leaned in and whispered, "I told you, music brings souls together." The crowd applauded, but for Ethan, nothing else existed but her and the melody between them. He'd once thought love was found in perfection, but she showed him. Love is born in imperfection, in courage, in the willingness to change. The year after their wedding was filled with laughter, shared dreams, and endless melodies. Ethan and Lila had turned their unlikely love story into something the city adored. They began hosting small charity concerts, using music to fund scholarships for underprivileged young musicians. But life, as always, had its own rhythm, one that doesn't always stay in tune. One rainy evening, after a small performance, Lila began to feel faint. At first, she brushed it off, exhaustion maybe. But when it happened again, worse this time, Ethan insisted they see a doctor. A few days later, the diagnosis shattered their world. Lila had a rare neurological condition, one that slowly weakened her hands and made it painful to play the violin. The doctor said gently, "You might have to stop performing soon." Lila smiled weakly, but Ethan saw the pain behind her eyes. Music wasn't just her talent, it was her heartbeat. That night, as she sat by the window, her violin resting silently beside her, Ethan came and knelt before her. "I promised I'd never let you lose your music," he said softly. She shook her head, tears streaming. "Ethan, even if I can't play anymore, I want you to keep playing. For both of us." He kissed her hands, trembling but still beautiful. "Then I will. Every day." Months passed. Lila's strength faded, but her spirit never did. Ethan practiced tirelessly, learning every song she had ever played. Their house filled with music again. This time, each morning she'd sit in her armchair, eyes closed, smiling as Ethan's notes floated through the air. "You've become better than me," she teased one day. "No," he said, gently brushing her cheek. "I'm just finishing the song you started." One evening, she asked him to take her somewhere, back to where we met. The ballroom had long been closed, but Ethan pulled a few strings to open it just for them. The chandeliers glowed once again, dust shimmering like stars. He brought her inside in a wheelchair, the same spot where she once stood under the spotlight, violin in hand. Ethan took out his violin, the one she'd taught him to love, and began to play her favorite song, the one she'd performed that first night. As the melody filled the empty hall, tears ran down her face. She whispered, "I can feel it again. The music. It's still alive." When the last note faded, she looked at him and said, "Promise me one thing. Anything. Don't let the world forget the power of a song." He nodded, holding her close as the rain began to fall outside. A quiet rhythm, like applause from the heavens. A year later, Lila's foundation, the Harper Harmony Trust, became one of the most respected charity programs for young musicians across the country. At the annual gala, Ethan stood before a massive audience, violin in hand, tears glistening in his eyes. "This song," he said softly, "is for the woman who taught me that love is not what we say, it's what we play." As he played, the crowd stood silently, feeling every note, grief, love, hope, and beauty intertwined. And though